It's not unusual for feelings of inadequacy to arise when you bring home a new baby and as you face each new stage of their development, right? In this episode, you'll hear strategies about how to handle the inevitable worries that accompany becoming a parent. I'm so excited to be talking with Onnie Mikowski, who is a licensed therapist and wellness coach for busy mums who desperately need a break but refuse to take one. Onnie is a mother of 6 who helps fellow mums hang up their superwoman capes and break through the limiting belief that are keeping them from becoming their best self. Her mission is to help women discover and fall in love with who they are by unlocking the life-changing power of self-care. In this episode, Onnie walks new parents through the process of identifying and challenging the worries and thoughts that are contributing to all their self-doubts. I'm infant massage instructor Helen Thompson. Hello and welcome to First Time Mums Chat. Being a parent for the first time is challenging and changes your life in every way imaginable. To help ease your transition into parenthood, I aim to offer supportive, holistic approaches and insights for mums of babies aged 4 weeks to 10 months old. My goal is to assist you to become the most confident parent you can and smooth out the bumps along the way. This podcast is brought to you by My Baby Massage, so let's do this together. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please contact a medical practitioner if you are concerned or have any medical issues. Hi Onnie, and welcome to First Time Mums Chat. I've been really excited having you here because I know you've got a lot to share with first time mums. So can I just start by asking you to sort of tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've got to share with first time mums?
Yep. So Helen, I'm so glad to be here and thank you for having me. I am a licensed therapist here in the States, as well as a wellness coach. And I work with moms. I work with moms, helping them put themselves on their to-do list. And especially with first-time moms, it took me 10 years before I realized how important it is to put yourself on your to-do list and to prioritize yourself. And it's made all of the difference with how I approach motherhood.
When you say you put them on your to-do list, what do you mean by putting a mum on a to-do list? It makes me laugh when you say that.
So I am a list maker. I always have 50 things that I want to do, that I need to take care of, taking care of everyone else and making sure everything is taken care of. And so I'm always making lists. And so when I say put yourself on your to-do list, I mean actually being intentional about, making a date with yourself, making sure that you are taking care of you. Mm-hmm. Because we always, we are made as moms, we are so accustomed to having to take care of everyone else.
Yes, that's true.
And we usually put ourselves last. Usually we don't even make the list. I know for years I never even made the list, as far as I was never intentional about making sure that I did stuff for me. I lost myself under my mom's hat. I didn't know what I liked to do. I didn't know what I could do or even how to ask for what I needed. I didn't even know what I needed. And so that's what I mean when I say put yourself on your to-do list.
I can understand that. And what are some of the biggest worries that you think that mums may have, that you're talking about your to-do list, but there are obviously some worries that mums may have, and can you sort of tell me a little bit about that?
Yep. So let me give you a little bit. I told you about my what I do for my business, but I am a mom of 6.
Wow, so you've got a lot of kids.
I have 6 kids. Yeah. My husband and I will be celebrating our 22nd anniversary here in a couple of weeks. So our kids range from, our oldest is 21, and we have 17 to 14-year-olds. We have a set of twins in there. And then we have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. We have 5 girls and 1 boy.
Wow.
He's right in the middle. So we got lots of kids, very spaced out. Our kids, like, there's pros and cons of having them so far apart. There's 3 to 4 years between each of them. And it's good because the older ones are able to watch the younger ones and they help out.
Yes. But
it's also, the con is that they're so far apart. Like, I've been doing this mom thing for 21 years. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, and we still have our 7-year-old. And so over the years, I realized, like, every season of life is different. Every season, as our kids develop, we develop as moms as well. And our worries and our concerns and our fears kind of evolve as we move along. Mm-hmm. So what we worry about is when we have teenagers, right? Like, which I have 3 teenagers right now. It was a lot different than what I was worrying about when I became a first-time mom. When I first became a mom, which was 21 years ago. And I think one of the biggest worries that actually stretch the whole gamut, no matter what season, is, am I enough? Am I doing this right?
A lot of moms do that.
Right. No matter what season of life, because every time you reach a new season, and even if I was just talking to my oldest daughter this weekend, and I said something to my youngest one, and she's like, you never did that for us. And I go, well, I'm a different mom. I'm a different person than I was when you were 7 versus now, when there's, like, you pick your battles. You have to, you evolve as a person, as a mom. Yeah. And so your parenting methods are going to change as well. You learn from your mistakes sometimes, and you're questioning all along, am I good enough? So that's one of the biggest worries that's going to run the whole gamut. But worries that are specific to new moms would be like a lot of, breastfeeding.
Yes, that's tough. Yes, that's a really
am I producing enough milk? Am I doing it right? All of those concerns and worries that go along with that area. Maybe development, right? Is my baby growing fast enough? Are they walking soon enough? Should they be talking by now? All of these, whether the developmental milestones, if your baby, so that a lot of worries and concerns surround that area.
But then again, each parent is different, each child is different. And I think that is the key, because I've just done a podcast recently on crawling. And it's so, you look at the developmental things, that every child is so different, and every mum sort of says, right, well, why isn't my child doing what my friend's child is doing? But I keep trying to say to mums, is, if you've got 6 kids, that every child is different. And if they don't develop all at the same time, it doesn't mean necessarily there's anything wrong with them. And I think that's the key, to sort of let first-time mums know, because a lot of them think, oh gosh, my friend's baby's doing that. Why isn't my baby?
Yep. And that's one of the number one ways, like, stop playing the compare game. Because you're never going to win. You are never going to win. And it's for you as a mom, as well as with your children. Like, comparing yourself and the way you parent to another mom, you're not going to win there. You're always going to have those self-doubts creep in. Yeah, and then also when you're comparing, like, your child's development or how your child is responding or growing to another child, again, you're right. Every child is different. And sure, there's like certain things like that you look for to make sure that the trend is, it's not, my mind just went blank as to what the word is.
You mean it's more like what they're supposed to be doing, in inverted commas, at a certain age.
Air quotes around supposed to or should be. Because that is just, it's kind of like classrooms, right? You have to teach to the masses.
Yes.
Teachers have to teach to the masses. But there's always going to be those outliers. And it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It is what it is. They're just the outliers. And so they just need to have a base point or a baseline in order to, like, make sure that your child is developing. But that compare game, you're never going to win. So that's the number one thing, is to just put your blinders on and developing that self-trust, being able to trust your intuition, which that I was going to just talk about, that trusting your instincts. I don't know, like, based on what religion people are or where they're coming from, like their faith belief, but your child was given to you because you are the perfect parent for that child.
Yes, absolutely.
And so going with those instincts, those maternal instincts, and learning how to trust them is going to be key, as well as not playing that compare game for the worries, fears, and the concerns. Looking at also I have my notes here that I wanted to, but trusting your instincts. Also, I wanted to say that we have a tendency in this modern day and age to be Googling and searching for answers.
Yes, and Mr. Google's not always right.
Right? Like, it can get you in trouble, and it can really like increase those self-doubts. The more you look for those answers and do searches, and it leaves you feeling worse.
Yes.
And so try to limit.
Because you think that Mr. Google's always right, and he's not always right.
It's not. And it really stops you from building that trust, that self-trust. Looking at what you can control, because there's a lot of things that you can't control, but in any given situation, even if you can control just your response, there's always going to be some things that you can control. And so when you have those self-doubts start coming up, start bubbling up, you want to look at it and you want to see, like, what can I control about this? What is within my realm of control? So that way you can kind of rope in those self-doubts and look for, which comes to my last thing, is challenging those thoughts, challenging those self-doubts. And I'll get a little bit more into that. But do you have any questions about those?
I was thinking more, I was waiting till you finished. I was thinking about what you said about your own trusting in your intuition, because I think that's really, really important, to trust in your intuition, because there are so many times when you sort of think to yourself, I should be doing, this little voice inside of you says, pick up your child, he's crying. But you're so tired and you might be thinking, oh God, no, I just want to go to sleep. I'll just give him a little pat. But that's just an example of trusting your intuition. And sometimes you think, well, if I pick him up, oh, I won't be able to go to sleep. But it's so powerful to trust your intuition. I was just giving an example with the baby, but just in general life. I mean, there's frequently times when a little voice has said to me, oh, Helen, do this, and I don't do it, and then something happens that's telling me, well, I told you to do that. Right. That kind of thing. And I think when you said that about trusting your intuition, I think that's such a valuable key for first-time mums to do, because if you don't trust your own intuition, I'm not saying something will go wrong. I don't want to, but if you listen to that little voice inside of you, it's so important to do that. And I think that's a very, 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 very valuable thing to do.
It is. I think you're right. You're absolutely right about that. And the more you search and question that intuition, like, the less powerful that voice is, right? Because you start squashing it or you start ignoring it. And so instead you want to learn how to listen to that instinct, because unfortunately, we're not given an instruction book.
No, that's right.
Even if we were, that instruction book was built for the masses. That instruction book was not built for your child.
That's right. You can't build an instruction book for one particular child. I mean, some mums sort of turn around and say, oh, but why can't babies be born with instruction books? It's a sort of funny, it's a funny thing to say, but yes, it would be great if there was a basic, well, in inverted commas, I mean, there's a basic instruction book, but to me, what's the point? Because as we keep saying, and it's what I keep saying in baby massage, that every child is different, and it's always baby led. So your child is your baby, and you've got to lead your baby the way that your child wants to go. Does that make sense, what I just
Yes.
said?
So
Yeah.
do you know the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and then What to Expect the First Year, and what to expect?
I've
So
heard of it, but I haven't read it. But yes.
okay, so I did. I even had it highlighted, underlined. I it was I had read that book thinking I was going to be so prepared, but you're just truly not prepared. Like that's why there has been so many different books written on the subject of how to take care of your baby, because everyone's trying to write or come out with like that instruction book.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you do need to trust your own instincts. And sure, it's good to know what kind of what you can expect, but it's never going to be the full picture.
Yeah, true.
Right? Can
I
we
mean, and
agree
you've
on
had
that?
6 kids, so I think you know what you're talking about there. I mean,
And the first is different than the second, is different than the third, and we are different as moms.
yes.
We are different. Like
And you
as
learn from each child. I mean, you've got twins. That must have been a challenge. I mean, they certainly don't come with instruction books.
especially when they start going in different directions. And one was
Yes.
that was one. Our son is one of those twins, and so just the gender differences
Yes.
alone were amazing. And there's still, but now they have the twin thing going on. There's
How old are
definitely
your twins?
14.
Oh,
And now
right. So the
it was one thing when they were learning both how to walk and they would take off in different directions, but now they're both doing driver's education, and now they're both going to be driving, which is a whole
oh,
nother, right? That's what I was saying in the beginning about our worries and our fears. They change.
yes,
So,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
That's true.
I was talking about the challenging your thoughts.
Yep, yep.
And so I want moms to realize that it is absolutely natural to worry. Like that's
Yeah.
a natural thing. There's nothing wrong with you if you have all these worries, right? It's when it becomes excessive that it
Mm-hmm,
crosses
mm-hmm.
over to the point of anxiety, and where
Yeah.
it would be like diagnosable. If those worries become debilitating, where they stop you from being able to do what it is that you want to do. That's
Yes.
the
Yeah.
point where, I do suggest to get therapy or to seek out professional help. When those worries cross over to the point where you're not able to do what you want to do, or they impinge on like the safety of your child. You're so
Mm-hmm.
worried about, the different your concerns and about life, and how, if you're going to hurt your child and things like that's when professional help should definitely be
Yeah.
sought. There is a certain amount of worrying, or certain worrying that's perfectly normal. In fact, I was even reading about, like, during pregnancy, the brain actually, like, certain areas of the brain actually physically change.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of
Yes. Mm-hmm.
neuroscience. You may know more about that.
I know a little bit, but not much. I know more of it
Yeah.
from the baby side, not from the adult side. But yeah.
Okay, so like the pregnant woman's brain actually changes, and like neuroplasticity when a woman becomes pregnant, and this actually affects the amount of worrying. And because back in like evolutionary, right? Like we needed to worry when the saber-toothed tiger was chasing us, right?
yes.
Like that worry caused us to respond to protect ourselves from danger. And so evolutionally, like, changes produce that need to worry. So I have it down here. Will people think I'm a terrible parent? Like this is an example of a
Yeah.
thought or something that a new mom may worry about, like thinking that people are going to think that they're a terrible parent. And first of all, like, no mom is a pro. No matter how many kids you
No,
have,
that's
every
right.
kid is different.
Yeah.
And especially a first time mom, nobody's expecting you to be a pro. They may have lots of advice for you, things that they think are helpful, but
Yeah.
nobody is expecting you to be a pro. And so when you look at that thought, like, no one's, or was it, will people think I'm a terrible parent? You look at that and you're like, okay, am I playing the compare game?
Yes, and that's yeah.
Yeah. And am I a terrible parent? Is there evidence that exists that I'm not a terrible parent? Like, you want to dispute, you want to kind of reflect on that concern or that thought, and then start dissecting it. and looking for evidence that points against it. Say, it's okay. My child is okay. I'm okay. I am exactly who my child needs. Yes, start coming up with like those affirmations or those like a variation of that worry in order to come out with a thought that serves you.
Like in other words, changing it into a positive. If you're got anxiety or whatever, changing it into a positive thought rather than constantly thinking of the negative.
Yes, because we tend to do that. We tend to replay those soundtracks in our mind. Yes. And when you say, people think I'm a terrible parent, and then
if you keep saying that to yourself, you will be a terrible parent.
Yep. It's a matter of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Yes.
Yep. We start telling ourselves this, and then we start believing it, and we start acting as such. Yes. So that's that self-fulfilling prophecy. And we start looking for evidence that supports that belief. So like when we're telling ourselves, oh, we're a terrible parent, everything we do, we start like gathering it and saying, see, look, I'm a terrible parent because I left the dirty diaper on too long. Or I'm a bad parent because, I'm trying to think of an example. You might be able to come up.
I went to do the laundry or something when my baby was just beginning to cry, and I went to do the laundry, or I left my baby in a high chair while I sort of turned around and cooked something, or something like that. I was just those just came up
I'm a terrible parent my head. My house is dirty. My house is clean. I can't keep up with the housework. Yes. Like we start telling ourselves, and then we start collecting the evidence that supports that thought. Well, before you even start collecting the evidence, it helps to reframe that thought and do the work, because we repeat our thoughts, right? So we're repeating, I'm a terrible. So do the work, reflect on that thought, come up with a few variations, a few counter statements, so that next time you go to oh, I'm a terrible parent, you already have done the work. You've already reflected on that and done the work and proved yourself otherwise. Yes. That I'm not a terrible parent. I made a mistake, or I'm not a terrible parent. I'm learning. I'm a new mother. Like, give yourself that self-compassion. Yes. And then next time it happens, you continue to do the work. I keep going like this. You continue to do the work until that new belief takes hold.
Yes. And
that I'm a good parent. I'm exactly the parent that my child needs.
Yes.
And I'm doing the best that I can at this moment.
Yep. Yeah, but when parents sort of and I understand where you're coming from, but when parents get so overwhelmed and so stressed, they tend not to think about these things because they're struggling, they're overwhelmed, and they're struggling, and they're thinking, help, and that's when they go into what I don't know what you're talking about is postnatal depression, but anxiety. Anxiety, I guess, sort of links a little bit to the postnatal depression. And that's when you say you do need that support. But how do I put this? I was going to say, if you can nip it in the bud before you get to that stage, as you're saying with the affirmations, well, then it helps so you don't feel that way. And if you've got a supportive partner or a supportive husband, or even just a supportive friend who can sort of say, look, you're getting a little bit anxious. Why don't I take the baby and you do the housework, or you do that, or you take the baby and I'll do the housework. So you give them that support as well, because I think that would help with the anxiety too.
It is. And so that would be great if you had the support, but I know many moms don't have that support. Yes, and so learning how to communicate, like first identifying what it is that you need. That was big for me. Like saying like, what do I need? What would help me be able to feel less overwhelmed? And maybe it is asking, most likely it probably is asking somebody for help. And then having that go-to list, because people are willing to help, whether it be somebody at your church or a neighbor. There's going to be people in your life that you didn't even think of that would feel honored and would welcome the opportunity to help. And so it really is examining like your own, what do I need to feel less overwhelmed? And then learning how to ask for help,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
that's a whole nother ball game, right?
Yes. Yes. Oh, it is, definitely.
And that's where a lot of moms struggle. They think
Yeah.
it's those expectations that we put on ourselves, that society puts on us, and then we adopt those expectations for ourselves and thinking, I should be able to do this.
And
I
mum just,
have to, I
yeah.
have to do this. I have to make this work. I have to, have 3 meals on the table for my husband while and take care of this newborn all day. There's, I'm a failure if I don't. These are the self-doubts that I'm talking about. These
Yeah.
expectations, unrealistic expectations, but expectations nonetheless, that moms often hold, that prevent them from getting the support.
And they're not super mums,
No.
nobody's a super mum. I mean, it's lovely to
Sometimes
think you're a
we think we
super
are.
woman, which is great. We are super women, but not in that sort of, not in the respect of being a super mum. At the same time, you've got to have time for you, and that's
Yep.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I talk about. In fact, I created an entire Facebook group, a movement per se.
Oh, before, yeah, I'd love to be, yes.
And that's what we are, moms without capes. And it's all about hanging up your superwoman cape and learning how to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yes.
you're not so overwhelmed that something happens, or, you avoid the burnout by learning how to take care of you. And it took, like I said, it took me 10 years until our oldest was 10 years old, and now she's 21. So I've been at it for a while, learning how important it is to be intentional about. And a lot of the things I talk about, the 5 pillars of self-care, and that's taking care of your physical self, your emotional, which is like your mental health, your spiritual, which is feeding your soul, your intellectual, and that's like, learning new skills and stimulating your mind. And then finally, social. And that is fostering and growing those relationships in your life. Like we just talked about, the support.
Yeah, funny enough, I learned about those when I was in childcare, when I was doing my childcare qualification. We call it PIES, the physical, intellectual. When I was doing my childcare degree, my childcare qualification, what you said, we called it PIES because it was physical, intellectual, emotional, and social.
Okay.
And we used to, yeah. So I can relate to what you're saying there.
Yep. So those are the main areas, that we need as humans, and especially as moms. But you know what? Self-care is not going to happen. You can't find time for self-care. You have to make it. You have to be intentional. And that means sometimes asking for help.
Yeah, put it into your diary as well, saying, right, it's my day for self-care or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Like planning it out, because as moms, it's very unpredictable. There's
you don't have time to plan it out, and if you sort of put it in your schedule, well, then you're making that time. And I think that's
because it's just not going to happen on its own. You're not going to find an extra 10 minutes and say, oh, let me read a book.
You start reading a book. I don't know if you ever seen had the story when your kids were growing up of this called, I think it's called Mr. and Mrs. Large, that they're elephants, and the title of the book is 5 Minutes Peace. And the elephant and Mrs. Large is trying to have a bath, and she's got 3 kids. And the kids are going, Mom, can I have this? And the next kid goes, Mom, can I have this? And she goes, no, I want 5 minutes peace. And she goes into the bath, and she had about 1 minute's peace.
Yeah.
And one little kid comes in and distracts her and jumps into the bath. And then the other one comes in and eventually she just, yeah, they knock on the door. It's just,
Mom,
yes.
Mom.
That's a great little book. That's a great book. But your son is probably too old for it now. But I love reading that. I love reading that. It with kids, because it actually gives them the opportunity to realize that you as a mum do need 5 minutes peace, even if it's just you're not leaving your kids.
Yeah.
You're just
Yeah,
saying,
just
look,
taking that break, that very
you've got
necessary
your
break.
breakfast here. You've got this. I'm just going to go and have a bath, or I'm just going. Yeah, it's
Yep.
yeah.
And to all the new moms, grocery shopping and doing errands, that is not self-care.
No, no. Self-care is like going to have a massage, going to
Yes.
have a makeover, going to have a coffee with a friend without your
Yep.
baby.
Even just sitting outside for that 5 minutes piece, like
Yes,
even sitting outside on your front porch and taking some breaths and being able to hear your own thoughts. That
yes.
is self-care. Self-care does not have to cost a lot of money. It
No,
doesn't have to cost any money.
no,
It
that's
doesn't
right.
have to, take a lot of time. Just taking that 5 minutes, it could just be reciting an affirmation to yourself
Yes,
in the mirror and taking that deep breath. That's considered self-care, and doing that multiple times, filling
and
your
each yeah,
bucket.
yeah. I think yeah, that's. I mean, mine were more sort of my ideas were more sort of the money side. But as you say, you don't have to do that. You just sit
Right.
quietly and
Some
just
people, that is self-care. And if you can't do a full day or you can't do a half day, do it in 5 minute spurts. You
yes,
got to
yeah,
start somewhere though.
yes, that's true. So you mentioned your Facebook group. So is that if after we've been talking, I'm sure mums are going to think that you've got a lot to give. Where can they find out about you, and how can they? Because I know you do courses and everything. So is there a way that first time mums can find out more about you if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. So I did mention my Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook, come join my group. Otherwise, you just go to momswithoutcapes.com, and I usually have all my offerings and services and all on that on the website. But usually I'm found on Facebook. I try to jump in there. I actually have a freebie that I'm going to give to your audience. It is a thought log or a thought diary, and it's going to help you identify and challenge the thoughts that, or the worries and thoughts that you are having. And so it just walks you through the process of how to start recording and identifying. And then, of course, the most important part is challenging those worries. So I'll give Helen the link to that, so that way you can grab a hold of that.
Thank you.
I also have a sleep workshop that I do
Ah,
fairly often, a sleep workshop. So if you are a new mom and you are struggling with sleep, I have a workshop that I developed, and we go all over cognitive and behavioral techniques and strategies on improving your sleep. So that may be something that's useful, because I know with new moms, it's hard to get that sleep. And especially if the worries are keeping you up at night.
so it's more that's quite unique because it's one for mums rather than one for babies. Because I know there's a lot of sleep consultants out there that deal with the baby side, but actually
This is for
having one to
moms.
help the mum is that's great. So
Yeah, sleep is such an important part of self-care, as we know. Like if you don't get much sleep, I know if I don't get much sleep, I am crazy the next
yes,
day.
true.
Can't make decisions, just walking around with like the brain fog. And so there's lots of reasons why we don't sleep. And so this helps you improve the quality and the quantity.
Oh, that
And
would
it's
be great.
specifically for moms.
Well, anyway, Onnie, thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed this chat. It's been great catching up with you, and I've learned so much from you today.
Yes,
So,
thank you so much.
and
I'm glad it's
thank you
found
for
this
coming
helpful.
on, and thank you for joining First Time Mums Chat.
Thank you, Helen. It was an honor to be here.
Onnie shared some great tips on how to overcome those limiting beliefs that are hindering you. Be sure to get hold of Onnie's thoughts diary that she's put together for listeners of First Time Mums Chat, and check out her website and Facebook group. You'll find the links and details in the show notes, which can be accessed at mybabymassage.net/podcast/026. mybabymassage.net/podcast/026. If you're looking for additional help or resources, I also run a free Facebook group called First Time Mums Lounge. So please join me and you'll gain access to tips to help you and your baby through the beginning stages of your journey. You can access the group by going to mybabymassage.net/Facebook. mybabymassage.net/Facebook. I also welcome questions, comments and feedback on my podcast episodes. Please feel free to reach out by sending me an email at info@mybabymassage.net. info@mybabymassage.net. And once again, thank you so much for listening.